Welcome, everyone, to the 2025 Payments Canada Summit Digital Experience. My name is Ryan Grundy. I'm the lead of ecosystem engagement at Payments Canada and the host of the Summit Series. Today, I'm joined by someone well known to us at Payments Canada and well known across the Canadian payments ecosystem, Elena Litani of Visa Canada. Elena has over 20 years of experience in payments and fintech, is a recognized leader driving innovation in the financial sector. She's currently head of real-time payments and open banking at Visa, where she oversees strategic initiatives. Previously, she co-founded Pillar, which was a Canadian neobank for small businesses, launched credit building at Coho, led a blockchain innovation at TD Bank, and drove global IT strategies for IBM's top clients. It's quite the resume. Elena is also, let me not forget, Elena is also a recipient of the Women in Payments Innovation Award. So welcome, Elena. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me, Ryan. Really excited to our conversation, and thank you for the introduction.
Always a pleasure. So I think we'll sort of jump right into it. Let's start by hearing about some of your current initiatives. What are your top priorities these days?
Well, luckily and not surprisingly, I guess my top priority is closely aligned with Visa strategy. So it's centered around driving client value through innovation. No surprise there. So I'm fortunate to work on again on emergent payments, shaping strategy and go to market. Right now, specifically, I'm focusing on enabling real-time payments rails in Canada with strong emphasis on fraud prevention. As you know, probably, I don't know if you've heard the product drop yesterday. Visa in the last 25 years processed over 3.3 trillion transactions. And we've done it security, with AI, machine learning to make sure that the customer remains whole. So I'm actually working on bringing these similar technologies to Canada and Canadian market to ensure that we have secure and safe real-time rail payment system. I'm also working on open banking, and it's not for the faintest of hearts. It's a slow process in Canada, as everyone is aware. But we're looking at how this can potentially unlock better customer experiences, provide more inclusive access, and create better use cases, enable better use cases specifically about small businesses. As you know, it's dear to my heart. But having spent a couple of years working on a neobank, so I do think that will benefit a lot small businesses owners and potentially enable them to be more successful. So I guess in general, my day to day, you would say pretty exciting. And sometimes it does feel like I'm working for a startup.
No, I love that answer. It definitely resonates. Working on delivering real-time payments with a focus on fraud and making sure that the lens of inclusion always applies. It resonates quite a bit there. So thank you very much. And honestly, I mean, an exciting time to be sort of part of the payments ecosystem. There's a lot sort of moving and shaking. Not that it's ever a dull moment, but certainly I've seen some inertia picking up as of late. So thank you very much for that response. Thinking about our theme, for the 2025 summit, which is innovate, collaborate, and transform. Just want to know what innovation means to you. You touched upon some elements there in your opening, but what will be the biggest driver of change in payments, and what will the sources of stability be?
Great question, Ryan. I think for me, innovation is about solving like real problems, but with practical and forward-looking solutions. I think it's important not to get stuck on just an ideation and ideas. It's really important execution. And for my, as you mentioned previously, my experience in banking, technology companies, fintech, I've seen how this kind of meaningful innovation happens when we bring together the emerging technologies, the evolving regulations, as well as, of course, real user needs. Um, we've just touched upon real-time rails in Canada. It's not just about speed, right? Like some could say that, well, we already have e-transfers and it's pretty quick. It feels like real time. So why would we need it? But to me, it's about creating the infrastructure for the future, infrastructure which supports new business models, new use cases, while supporting like having this fraud detection and protection and dispute resolution so that consumer protections are still in place and potentially small business protection as well as we evolve into new use cases on this rails. Open banking is another area we've just touched, and again, it's balancing the access with trust. And then we've again just had another announcement around AI. This is tremendous opportunity. I think it's not just a shift of how we dealing with fraud. We used to be more reactive. Now we're trying to be more proactive in detecting the fraud based on the network level detection scoring. But it's also enabling better user experience through shopping and selling. And I've watched the video yesterday, and like from our executives, and it was fantastic to see how the potential of AI agents and automation, and how it can all bring together for the customer to be more successful. You also like mentioned stability, and I guess stability to me is all about building and maintaining trust. And that's super important in open banking or real-time rails. And I think when they think about it, I think when we build the solutions, we need to think about three principles. It's about security, how we build a solution from the start, which is secure, and the ensuring that digital identity remains whole, and that security remains throughout the whole transaction or user experience. It has to be inclusive. We've talked about it, so that it's not only about bringing new technologies to the payments to be accessible, but beneficial across the ecosystem. And for Visa, this is specifically more important because we are a global company, and we want to make sure that whatever we bring to the client, it's has a lot of benefit across the segments. And then, of course, sustainability is important. You mentioned collaboration earlier, and again, I think no single player can do it alone. And stability, it has to be a collective effort. And maybe final thought on that is I think like things are changing. We see the generation alpha, we see AI assistance. It's all changing the buying behavior, buying habits. So, and with new technologies, emerging technologies, there is an opportunity, but also a threat. So I think it's important we anticipate those changes and evolve our systems in gradual but stable way. So we are proactively adapting. So I guess stability is dynamic for me.
No, excellent answer. I love that. I think, a few things that jumped out for me was, there's that appropriate balance to be struck between sort of the ideas and the execution.
Yeah.
Obviously, innovation is the catalyst, but clearly when we're talking about, the financial sector, you'd reference trust a lot as well. And so that always has to be something that those two have to basically operate in lockstep. I think often you hear about innovation and competition on one side, safety and security on the other, and certainly there's definitely sort of an intrinsic relationship, between the two, if we're going to be effective with payments modernization. I think another thing that jumped out to me there was the focus on the customer, which is, it's front and center. I mean, without sort of meeting client needs, without sort of enabling, Canadians, without sort of advancing our position on the competitive landscape, really what is it for? So it's nice to obviously have that reinforced, that that's sort of a driving principle, for you, and your organization. You closed your answer there with some commentary around collaboration, and given sort of your provenance, given how you've played roles within various sectors within the payments ecosystem, you're probably very well positioned to speak to it. But just wondering, where you see some of those opportunities for collaboration, and if you can give us an example, of how a collaborative approach may have led to a better outcome for you.
That's a great question, Ryan. And I think there's so many examples, and especially in the payment ecosystem, it's all about collaboration. I mean, card networks, Visa and MasterCard both built in this collaborative effort where you have merchant, you have connect issuers, clients, etc. But maybe one example which I would bring is remember when we used to pay with MasterCards for transit, right? And it was the only way to pay. But now, I mean, for collaboration, now you can use this tap to pay, right? You can use any type of card, and this is super helpful for people who are either visiting Toronto and or occasional users. I'm actually recently been to San Francisco, and I was like, okay, how do I pay? And I had to buy a card, which
Wow.
is yeah, which is like similar to Presto, which enables you. Now they have a really nice app which you can log in, etc. But because I'm not US resident, I couldn't do that either. So it ended up for me looking for a machine where I could buy it. But in this case, rollout, as you probably recall, wasn't simple. I mean, it started, I believe, in 2018. I think Vancouver was the first one with TransLink. They've enabled their riders to pay with Visa or MasterCard for transit. But it required collaboration across like issuers, card network, but also government agencies, so and technology providers. So it's not wasn't as as simple as flipping the switch. And then they took another time to enable debit, interact debit, and then now is Presto keep rolling out additional changes. Like now it's enabled for Apple Pay in Toronto, so like it's everything becomes much more smoother integrated. But it's a great example where collaboration, even though it was complex and undertaken, and there were some times of bumps on the road and things don't work as well. But now we have a great way to pay. But I also wanted to bring another example, actually. Like just yesterday, I mentioned earlier, we did a product drop for Visa, and it's an awesome example when we announced Visa Intelligent Commerce, which is represents how we see the next evolution of shopping for consumers, and it goes beyond mobile. It goes to AI-driven commerce. So I love the examples and the videos. I would urge anyone to watch. It's just a vision of the world where AI agent could help not just to browse, select, or make a purchase, but manage subscriptions, deliveries, and but do it all in a secure way and with user consent. But also ensuring that your preferences and our preferences are being kept on, being considered when making those purchases. And talking about ecosystem through announcements, again, there's multiple things you need to do. So you need AI brain itself. So we've announced collaborations with OpenAI, Perplexity, and many others, so that you, those developers who interact with users and understand the preferences and can make it smart decisions have an API to integrate to those payment capabilities. We need cloud infrastructure, so that's why I announced like Microsoft, IBM collaborations, but we also need secure payment and hardware integrations. So our first, I guess, partners are Stripe and Samsung. So it's just amazing to see how big the ecosystem is, but the opportunity is just amazing. It's like to me, is when the shift occurred. I remember when we shopped in the stores, right, and it was like an online shopping just became. And I remember thinking, well, I will never buy a dress online. It's just too
Yeah.
personal, right? So it's just too like how will it look? But now I do buy clothes online. I actually mostly probably buy clothes online. So I think this is a shift where experiences at some point. I spend so much time, preparing for either business travel, or personal vacations, and or even day-to-day purchases. You just need to buy, I don't know, toothpaste every month, let's say, and having this idea of that there's going to be an AI agent that I could deploy at my, of course, consent with security and trust. It's just fantastic. It will save me so much time.
I
So
mean,
yeah.
that's an amazing answer. And I mean, I think you brought up two really poignant examples of sort of quality of life enhancements that are being delivered through innovation. I mean, as someone who has children who ride transit, for me, I love that it's not, solely dependent on their possession of one card. Kids lose things, so it's nice that they've got, backups there. And I think another thing that came out is that reduction of friction. Like it's funny now
Mm.
how it's just not good enough for me to be able to do a lot of these transactions online. The more times I have to touch a screen, the more times I have to sort of enter information. I'm exasperated. Like client expectations, have always changed. And I think you talk about, the product drop where you've basically got, AI enabled commerce. I mean, that's fantastic. the future of payments, no matter who you talk to, it's all about reducing friction. But there's always that analogy, with duck swimming that I think about. It's like smooth on top of the water, but underneath you've got these little feet, sort of furiously moving. And you'd sort of provided an excellent example of all the players and partnerships that are required to kind of make that seamless, smooth experience, on the surface. So, love that answer. And it just like it hit a lot of notes. Like definitely there's a lot of things there I can make linkages to, in terms of my day to day.
Yeah, same for me, Ryan, because like again, I do have kids and my kids do lose Presto. So and my mom actually she's now retired, so she still didn't get her Presto, because it's like it's too load card, etc. So she keep using her, card to tap when she occasionally trains takes transit. So I think all of those fantastic things which I can relate personally as well. So
Yeah. And I mean, appreciate, some of the, you talked about, a product drop, that took out yesterday. Obviously, Visa's got, an eye towards the future in terms of consumer trends and even sort of undiscovered needs from a consumer perspective. As you look ahead, are there any other things that you see as being a great opportunity for yourself and for Visa?
Well, that's a great question. I think actually for us, it's all about, building up on the trust which we establish in brand and bringing all this experience and knowledge and global experience. So I think for Visa, I think the opportunities actually lie in many different areas. So like setting aside some of those emerging things, there is account-to-account payments, which been prevalent in many our countries in the world. I mean, in Canada, it's not as yet, I guess, prominent, but in some others like Brazil's, etc., India, there's a lot of happening around account-to-account payments. So I think there's a huge opportunities for Visa to bring its expertise around security, but fraud detection to those markets and potentially new use cases as well. Cross-border, I think it's still not fully solved, right? And there is, I think, a great potential with stable coins and Visa Direct as a product as well, and wallets to enable those capabilities. So I think commercial flows is another one, big one, which is hasn't been fully solved, and there's so much complexity and dependency and collaboration required to make it more efficient. But if we able to crack it, it would save so much time and create so much efficiency for the businesses. So I think I see opportunity in every single kind of pillar that Visa touches around the payments, enabling, better ways to pay and secure way to pay. So yeah, we'll have to watch the future and see as it coming to us.
We'll look forward to that. Lena, as it always is, it was an absolute pleasure, having this conversation with you today, and we definitely appreciate your taking the time to join us this morning. And I look forward to continuing the conversation. I guess the summit is rapidly approaching. May 6th to the 8th. So thank you everyone for tuning into the 2025 Summit Digital Experience. Thank you again, Elena, for joining us today. And we hope, on behalf of Payments Canada, that you enjoy the sessions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ryan, for having me. It was a pleasure, as always.